Yeah, thanks to Anne that gave me the opportunity to speak on the behalf of the German National Library on our Wikibase project. And I'm very, very grateful to be with you on this conference, despite I'm far away. I'm not in Brussels, I'm in Berlin at the moment. My name is Barbara Fischer, and I work as a liaison counsel and transformation manager at the Office of Library Standards at the German National Library. And I could say that my talk is like a sequel to the one of Sven Lieber at the Belgian National Library this morning. Meanwhile, my pre-speakers, François Renaville and her colleagues, focused on enriching their catalog with authority IDs. We focus on enriching the authority files by new communities. So please, next slide. Right, so I will talk to you very briefly on these 5 topics, on the gemeinsame Normdatei, on the software, on our project, on our evaluation, and on the manifesto. Next slide, please. Right, so this is a brief introduction to the integrated authority file or gemeinsame Normdatei, and I will share my slides with you after the conference, so please don't bother to make screenshots right now or so, and I'll share all the links within the slide with you as well. So in order for you to know what the GND is all about, I'll like to give you a short introduction. It was shaped in 2012 by integrating the data from various authority data sets into one. And it is a cooperative effort by a library network, both in Austria, in Germany, and Switzerland. So it's not the product of the German National Library, but of a cooperative in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. And the data is widely used for one, of course, in libraries and their cataloging, but increasingly also in museums, archives, research data centers, and other units such as public administrations. And alongside with the usage, the wish raised to be able to contribute new data records or correct or edit records that are already there. And the wish grew stronger as the digital transformation of the GLAM, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, and science gained momentum. And it coincided 2017 with the strategic plan to improve the GND, both in quantity, in quality, and diversity, by inviting non-librarian communities to become more active members in the GND cooperative. And in order to find out how to achieve this, a 5-year research project was launched. It is funded by the Deutsche Forschungsgesellschaft, and it is called GND for Culture, and I'm its project leader. The project team includes institutions from museums, libraries, and archives, and together with various teams at the German National Library, we design workflows and structures to enable participation in the governance structure, like the creation of GND agencies. And we evolve application profiles for the specific requests on regulations or criteria for eligibility. Fortunately, the GND data model itself turns out to meet most of the requirements, and we didn't need to change it very much. And we are fostering the development of tools in order to ease automatic processes for data checks before import or research within the GND, like we recently launched the Gnd Explorer, which you find in this slide linked here. And we strive to make it easier to actually contribute data to the GND without the need to sign in our kind of old-fashioned librarian database. And here's where Wikibase steps on the stage. But before we dive into Wikibase itself, let me introduce to you the GND database a little further by going to the next slide. There are round about 9 million entities in the GND. For comparison, the Library of Congress Authority contains 9.7 million names and subject headings. And there are roughly 1,000 new entities edited a day, mainly by scientific libraries in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. And the largest shares go to persons. Then there are corporate bodies. In that category, you will find enterprises, universities, editing houses, or ministries, and so forth. And due to the prime use of the GND as a tool for library cataloging, conferences as reference for many publications stand for almost 10% of the data. Lately, this entity type has been used for events in many more meanings, like theater productions. Yet the French Revolution, certainly an event to many, is considered a subject heading. As I mentioned before, one of the precursors of the GND was the Einheitssachtitel-Datei des Deutschen Musikarchivs. So in the class work, you will find many works of music alongside with literature and art. Architecture is not classified as work, but as a geographic name. Mind objects like frescoes, albeit they are immobile and part of the architecture, are classified as works as the School of Athens by Raphael in the Vatican. But in general, architecture as the Empire State Building is treated as a site or geographical name. In this category, you will also find rivers, landscapes, and cities, all by their character as corporate bodies. Subject headings are on one side as easy to understand as class as taggings. On the other side, opening the GND, we meet a broad range of different ontologies and terminologies you cannot harmonize under one roof. Here we need to improve our schema in order to allow different degrees of matches and junctions to thesauri outside the GND. And once again, this is a reason to look for Wikibase. Next slide, please. The GND itself is community-driven. That means you can add the data you need. But can you add all data? We are very often asked which data and entities actually belong to the GND, or which record has enough notability to become an authority record. Well, there is no final answer to that question. Like in a Common Garden project, we invite communities to have their own bets. They may grow as many plants as they want and can take care of. In case of the GND, this means only the community for a specific topic will know, for instance, to what grade of granularity they need geographical or historical places. Or they will know the granularity of a thesaurus and to what extent all branches of a gentry family, or if they need to have every chapel in a cathedral as an authority record. What amount of data files to persons are taking part in a film production is not to be decided in a general way, but only by that specific community. But it is not enough to dump the data. As contributor, you commit yourself to take care of all the data. That means add the necessary amount of properties to ensure disambiguation, and only reference data from acknowledged sources. And in case of reclamations, you have to answer them. When changes in format or alike are required to perform, you will have to perform them, which means you are required to balance you need for authority records with the amount of working hours you can spend on them. This requires to provide resources on a sustainable base and will ultimately lead the community to limit the amount of data considered to be a truly needed authority file. But it also requires a technical infrastructure to enable participation. Next slide. So this is our goal. We want to offer an appealing environment for non-librarian contributors to the GND in order to increase its diversity, its quality, the quantity and the richness of its data. And this is how we came to check on Wikibase as a software, as does the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, or a consortium in Luxembourg, including its National Library, and the Finnish National Library does so as well, and the Smithsonian Institute is testing Wikibase as a database to enhance participation and to promote the use of authority files in building the semantic web. Next slide. Yeah, just a brief introduction to Wikibase as a software. Wikibase is coded by Wikimedia Deutschland to serve Wikidata. You have to bear that in mind. And since 2018, Wikimedia Deutschland is in touch with power Wikibase users to understand how to transform Wikibase into a generic software product, which it is far from now. Next slide. Yeah, the huge hope is that using Wikibase, you will gain smooth access to a whole universe of other data sets and become part of a growing community. Wikimedia Deutschland, the main developer of Wikibase, shares that vision with us. Next slide. Well, you remember maybe this slide from this morning in the talk by Sven Lieber. So you can see that the idea is in the air. The idea to ease the pressure on Wikidata as a general data hub, because only well-cared data is good data. And to care for their data in Wikidata, communities need to adopt to the regulations that are set by the Wikidata community. And many feel this is both time-consuming and frustrating, as compromises tend to be. Here comes Wikibase as a fair alternative. Creating your own instance, you decide how to take care for your data, but using the same software, sharing, federation, and maybe even synchronization within the family becomes easier. As you can see, the Gnd is very close to Wikidata and linked to many other instances. Already now, we mutually include our identifiers in our data records. The process goes for now by hand or by bot and YF. But this is neither scaling or reliable, but changes inside. Next slide. So here come the two projects we are working on. One is to establish the Gnd Wikibase instance as a full operating second home to its master copy in the traditional software environment. So we'll keep the both alongside. And we will focus on smooth import and export through synchronization and usability. And the idea is to have our second home as a platform where you can easily enter new data records. But we are far from having it in production already. Next slide. Second, as you can imagine, in order to be able to make good authority files, you need quite some regulations. And these regulations are for now text-based, and we are transforming them into a structured data within Wikibase in order to make it easier to access the rules. So the information will be held in Wikibase and rendered then by other applications for a smoother and more user-friendly front end. And most of these front ends we still need to develop. Next slide. You can see on this slide the functionalities according to Wikimedia of Wikibase. And complementary to the functionalities, I really like you to bear in mind that neither Wikidata nor Wikibase target laymen, but rather data analysts who are able to perform at least basic coding. Next slide. We have been talking to other libraries evaluating Wikibase as well, and we would like to share our findings. We don't know if Wikibase develops from a unicorn into a working horse, but we like to go for it. The bullet points on the next slides pretty much reflect what we are missing. Next slide. But together with the staff of Wikimedia Deutschland, we would love to draft a model for common governance, improve usability features, and agree on how our functionalities could best contribute to the development of the software. Next slide. Yeah, there is still a lot to do. Mostly, skilled personnel is lacking. And there is a risk of lacking time to achieve our goals, knowing that powerful IT enterprises are working on a similar services, but licensed. We have been working for 4 years now on the project, and still we are in the first third of what we like to achieve. We hope to be able to release the Gnd documentation by 2023 and the Gnd second home soon after. It often feels frustrating in our project team that it takes so much time. Sure, we cannot put more than some part-time dedications from various specialists, both inside the DNB and hiring external personnel, but still. Wikibase is far more a prototype than you would expect looking at the enormous success story of Wikidata. And an NGO as Wikimedia Deutschland is not a profit-oriented software house selling products and services. The quality of an open source product is as good as its community, isn't it? So next slide. Coming to an end, this is what you can do. Join the GLAM. Next slide, would you please turn on the next slide, please? So this is what you could do. Join the GLAM community in the Wiki Library Manifesto. We aim at connecting GLAM institutions and Wikibase in an international network of knowledge. Thank you.